All right, I think we are going to start. It's a little bit of a small group tonight, but yeah, I think we can start. So welcome everyone. This is our second gardening online virtual workshop. So if people don't know me, I'm Sarah Tyler. I'm the gardener at Oberlin Community Services. Tonight we have John Schwartz from the Lorain Soil and Water Conservation District, and he's going to be talking about rain gardens. And then just want to remind everybody that we're going to record the workshop and then we can post it on our website if you guys want to watch it again or just forward it along to people. And then also feel free to ask any questions at the end about any questions you have about the People's Garden or anything OCS does. But with that, I'd love to introduce John and hope you like it. And thanks, John, for being here.
Thanks, Sarah. How's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Good.
Very good.
All right. So just before we get started, I'm going to kind of stop in between sections. Sarah's going to read any questions you guys may have for me. That way this is kind of be more of a dialogue as opposed to me just talking at you guys. As far as certain sizings and things, I sent Sarah an email with our rain garden manual. So don't feel overwhelmed if I'm going through things a little quickly. It's all found in that manual, okay?
Oops.
He's going to put.
Oh, I see. That's the presentation.
Okay. Can you guys see that okay and hear me?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to jump right in here. For those of you that don't know, the Soil and Water Conservation District, you know, we provide landowner assistance in a multitude of ways. We're, you know, mainly concerned with helping people conserve, maintain, and improve natural resources in the environment here in the county. Okay, let's see, how can I advance this? There we go. All right, so to start off, you know, I just want to briefly describe what a rain garden is. So these are landscaped areas planted with native perennial plants that don't mind getting their feet wet. What I mean by this is these are plants that are kind of adapted to be in saturated soils and standing water for a period of time. Generally, these are built in depressions, which are designed to capture and filter stormwater runoff from impervious surfaces around the home, such as rooftops and driveways. Rain soaks into the soil and the native plants and soils through biological and chemical processes, kind of take care of some of those harmful pollutants. This is kind of a relatively, you know, newer type of thing. It was designed in the Chesapeake Bay area in the early 1990s to address, you know, stormwater pollution issues. And essentially what they're doing is they're mimicking bioretention basins that are generally used in construction processes. So essentially rain falls, hits impervious surfaces such as a roof. It travels across the ground, enters in to the rain garden, and this is where the native plants, you know, do what they were designed and adapted to do, which is, you know, filter and uptake some of the storm water. When I first kind of started learning about rain gardens, I was kind of amazed to figure out that the standard rain garden, which is about 10 by 12, it can filter up to 30,000 gallons of water per year, or enough to fill a bathtub about 600 times. So if we think about the more that these are kind of installed in our landscape, we're kind of, you know, we start to make positive impacts on our watersheds. Not to go on too much more, but I am going to get on a soapbox for a little bit and talk about the benefits of rain gardens and why I encourage you or, you know, within the community to try to get more of these on the ground. You know, across the United States, as development increases, so does the amount of impervious surfaces. The more impervious surfaces we have on our landscape, the more stormwater we have entering our drainage systems that flow untreated into our streams and lakes. And what this does is it can degrade both water quality in addition to fish and wildlife habitat. Also, the construction activity to build those impervious surfaces, oftentimes the equipment used compacts the soil. So between installing impervious surfaces and soil compaction, our landscape's ability to absorb and filter stormwater is greatly reduced. So rain gardens provide a way for landowners not only to, you know, increase the aesthetic beauty of their property, but also kind of, you know, do a lot of work for us filtering out pollutants from stormwater.
If anything comes up, write it down.
So when I talk about impervious surfaces, what I'm really speaking about is artificial structures such as roads, sidewalks, driveways, parking lots, just surfaces that water can't penetrate. We get about 36 inches of rain annually here in Lorain County. I believe we probably got at least an inch today, so it's a appropriate day to be talking about rain gardens. But it's no longer, you know, we get 36 inches of rain, but we're adding all these impervious surfaces that no longer are able to uptake water. In general, 1 acre lot, once developed, it becomes about 10% impervious. This amount of impervious surfaces adds up quickly if we start looking at larger neighborhoods and subdivisions. And we can see the results in our local creeks and ditches pretty quickly. It starts moving more sediment. Our base flows kind of move during flash flow and rainstorms. It causes erosion, more woody debris, and eventually roots become exposed and the banks can eventually destabilize. An extreme example is when we're reaching about 40% impervious. This is a large shopping area here in the county. I mean, creeks at this point, we're just asking them to be pipes. So to handle this extra flow and velocity, they start cutting themselves deeper and wider. And what this does is, you know, one, you're adding more sediment to the waterway, you're degrading our riparian habitats. So there is a direct correlation between the amount of impervious surfaces and water quality and as well as stream health. When we start looking at about less than 5% developed, so in our more rural areas, we don't have a tremendous amount of brook trout, but for example, you know, you would expect to see brook trout in these areas as well as like a wide variety of macroinvertebrates. As we move on to 5–10% impervious on the landscape, you start seeing a decline in our macroinvertebrates, which are biological indicators for water quality. And then moving on 10 to 20%, you know, the water's warmer, the riparian habitat has been severely degraded, and then greater than 20%, I mean, there's not a whole lot happening in those waterways. So rainwater falls clean. It's when it hits the landscape that it picks up everything that we left behind. It's not generally treated. It's piped directly to our river, ditches, and then out to, you know, Lake Erie. So this type of pollution, as you know, I'm sure is called non-point source pollution. And this is often fertilizers, pesticides, pet waste, grass clippings, and yard debris. I'm going to be honest, I did not really understand how big of a problem pet waste could be prior to working here at the district. So a single gram of pet waste can contain about 23 million fecal coliform bacteria. So let's think Giardia, Salmonella, roundworm, toxoplasmosis. Bacteria from dog waste, it accounts for about 20% of bacteria in urban waterways. So nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus found in dog waste, basically they act like fertilizers in streams, and that fuels, you know, algae growth, which in turn reduces oxygen availability for fish and other aquatic organisms. You know, another benefit of implementing rain gardens, you know, in our landscape is it helps with sediment loading. Scientists are starting to realize this is one of the biggest remaining source of pollutant loading to our rivers, lakes, and streams. The top left picture there, that is a Lake Erie after a pretty significant spring rain event. And I'm sure we've all gone over top of the Black River and see how turbid that could be with a little bit of rain. You know, after large rain events, even tomorrow morning, go out and look at your storm drain. I bet you're going to find a little bit of soil particles, you know, near the storm drain. Nutrients like phosphorus bind extremely tight to soil particles. And there's also little flakes of zinc from car tires, magnesium and cambium from catalytic converters, and many other things that are attached to these dirt particles. So if we reduce the amount of storm water running off our property, we can reduce the harmful chemicals entering our systems.
John?
Yes.
The last one. Can you go back? Okay, can you explain what the black tarp and what is the purpose?
Yeah.
I see that and I'm trying to figure out what is, I remember homes being built, but what, is this something new in the environment?
Well, this slide's kind of showing two things. One, the soil is just that's entering into that storm drain. That's just one example, but also that construction fence there,
Right.
or silt fence, that's designed to actually stop sediment from leaving construction sites. But if you look at the top of the picture and you see where that fence have been compromised,
Yeah.
that's a big problem, especially on construction sites. So this is kind of a twofold slide.
All right. Is this recent though? This construction? Is that something now that, is it a law?
It's something that is required in most areas. Yes.
It's required, but if they don't have to do it, correct?
No, they should through their the construction permitting. They should have silt fence up on the construction sites. Essentially, they don't want any sediment leaving the sites.
Right, but if they don't do it, will they be fined?
Yes, they can. Depending on the area, yes, they can get fined. Or chances are, most of the time, you don't want to just start finding people. You try to work with them to get in compliance. But yes, then if after repeated offenses, they can be fined.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So just kind of to go over the points of my soapbox here, and I appreciate you guys being patient with me. So we can protect local streams by installing rain gardens, reduce that sediment load, slow water down so it's absorbed to recharge our local groundwater sources. And essentially it's our last line of defense for our local water bodies. There's also peripheral benefits that we all love, such as providing habitat for birds, butterflies, and insects, increasing biodiversity, because it's recommended to plant native plants in your rain garden. So outside of the normal cultivars that we see in a lot of landscapes, we start increasing that biodiversity, which enhances the beauty of our neighborhoods, and also it increases awareness of stormwater issues and what we can do as individual landowners to help mitigate some of those issues. Before I move on, is there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I had a comment about the dog waste. How come the dog waste is so bad, and then dung from the horses or for the chickens is good for the garden?
I don't know on a garden scape, but it's not necessarily for the garden. It's bad for our waterways. No different than the chicken or manure is also bad. Yeah, I'm not saying it's what that was, I guess, inferring is that if we reduce this runoff or the stormwater just rushing off our property, we've all seen people walking their dogs that may not clean up after them near our sidewalks in the tree lawn. Well, right outside that tree lawn is generally where our catch basins are, right? So that's what that was getting at. But no, manure or waste from any animal should be entering our systems, or try to reduce it as much as possible.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on a little bit. Selecting the location of rain gardens, and then into construction, and then finally we're going to get to the fun part of talking about native plants and species selection. The most common place that you'll find these rain gardens is below downspouts. That's where the majority of our roof runoff is coming from. Also, it could be downslope of any lawn area. If we look at the size of this building, I mean, that's a tremendous amount of impervious surfaces, and I'm sure there's a 3 times as big parking lot as well. So when it's downslope of any area, it can get there via the natural lay of the land or a swale. And where we can get the most bang for our buck is collecting rainwater from driveways, roads, and parking lots, because this is where it's going to be the dirtiest. Other site selection considerations: we want this to be a minimum of 10 feet from the house. You don't want to put any more water next to your foundation. Do not place this in an area of the yard where water already collects. I have this highlighted because this is debated among professionals. In my opinion, I would much rather see a rain garden, upstream, so to speak, of a saturated area, as opposed to already putting it where you're having, drainage issues, because your water table is already high there. So why not intercept that area? You don't want to place it in existing swales and ditches. Those are already providing a function. Once again, you can buffer them, you can put it upstream, but do not put it there. Also, do not put it under large trees. During the excavation process, you could damage the roots of the tree, and they're already serving a purpose as far as uptake of stormwater and filtering out those pollutants. It's very important that you call before you dig, so call 811 to check for any underground utilities, as well as check with your local zoning or HOA. After you selected the location, a simple perk test can help guide you a little bit further. Dig a 12 by 12 hole, fill the hole with water, let it sit overnight, refill the hole in the morning, and then measure every hour, and that'll give you your infiltration rate. This can guide you in your plant selection, soil amendments, as well as depth. You could also just do this as if you fill it with water and it does not drain within 24 hours, you're going to need to amend the soil. One method would be to dig an additional maybe 15 inches deeper for the rain garden, and then add a mix of about 50% coarse sand, 30% compost, and 20% topsoil. So we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about sizing the rain garden. This is an important step. The rain garden should represent about 20% of the total drainage area. For this example, I use Google Earth. You can also use Lorain County Auditor's website, or you can just go out there with the tape measure. In this example, there's a single downspout on the northeast corner. So I just use Google Earth to measure. It's about 36 foot long by 15 foot wide, so 540 square feet. 540 square feet, 20% of that is 108 square feet, or about a 10 by 10 garden. Like I said, that manual that I sent out to Sarah, it has all these kind of calculation examples in there for you guys. If you're like me and you're allergic to math, they work out to be about the size of a park. So.
How'd you know I was in this group? No.
There's always a couple of us. So, when we start thinking about the depth of the rain garden, there is no magic answer. Typically, these are about 4 to 8 inches deep. A rain garden less than 4 inches deep, it'll need way too much surface area to provide enough water storage to infiltrate larger storm events. Stormwater runoff should be spread evenly across the entire garden, and that increases the opportunity for infiltration. Perk test helps guide the depth. And also slope is used to determine the depth, which we're going to go into next. But keep in mind, this is final depth. There's going to be a lot more digging involved than just 4 to 6 or 4 to 8 inches deep. So when we're trying to use slope to determine the depth, there's a nice chart based on the percentage slope that helps guide you. So to do this, you want to set a stake on both the uphill and downhill side of the rain garden. Run a level string between the stake, and then you measure the width between the two stakes and the height on the downhill side. We'll go through an example, and then you divide the height by the width and multiply by 100, and this gives you your percent slope. So for example, if our string is 120 inches long and the height's 5 inches, 5 divided by 120 is 0.04, multiply that by 100 is 4%, go over to this nice chart, and that's going to be about 3 to 5 inches in depth. I promise that's the last bit of math.
So what you're measuring there is the difference between the high side of the slope and the low side of the slope, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So the rain gardens all have to have slopes.
Yes, but it's not as It does not have to be no, they do not. It's not that extreme of a slope. It actually, when it gets too big of a slope, water just rushes right through them. That's why it's not generally recommended to have anything with a slope greater than 8 to 12%. Like I said, in general, they're going to have a flat level bottom that's able to hold that water in there.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so now we're going to shift gears and talk about construction. Do you guys have any questions so far?
Nope.
All righty. So during construction, this is the time that you call the friend that you've helped move multiple times. Or, you know, there's lots of digging involved. So I really suggest that, you know, you get some help. To save on digging, mark your perimeter of your garden. You can use flagging, spray paint. And then you can also make digging easier by covering the area that's to be excavated with black plastic, newspaper, carpet squares. You can use a rototiller. As a last result, you can use herbicide. Make sure you give plenty of time between treatment and installation. So excavation, you're shooting for 3-to-1 slopes on the sides, and you want to ensure that this rain garden has a flat level bottom, so water is evenly distributed throughout the whole garden. If you are using machinery, avoid compacting the soil because you're going to decrease your infiltration rates. And when you're excavating, the soil that you're replacing it with, like I said before, it could be 50 to 60% sand, 20-30% topsoil, and 20-30% compost. Mix that's been working well for folks is called a ball field mix. And this is basically what you'd find out in a ball field. It's a sandy loamy sand soil mixture with an organic top layer.
What do you mean by a 3-to-1 slope on the side?
It's just a, for every 3 feet, there's about a foot of a fall. It's just very gradual.
Okay.
So, so in constructing the berm, what this helps do is this keeps water in the rain garden. So you want this to be highest on the downhill side and gradually taper off around the sides. It could be approximately about a foot across and 6 inches high. Use a hand tap to compact this soil. That way it remains intact. And once again, we're aiming for these very gentle slopes. And also, you know, mulching rain gardens is usually recommended, not only for providing a weed barrier, it conserves moisture for young plants during their first year. Mulching continues to help suppress weeds in following years, and we're looking for about a 2 to 3 inch layer of shredded hardwood mulch. Mulch is often sold in bags, about 10 square foot per bag. So you calculate the number of bags of mulch needed by dividing the square footage of the rain garden surface area by 10 to get the number of bags of mulch needed. So 150 square foot rain garden would require about 15 bags of mulch. That's the last bit of math.
Sure.
Promises.
Yeah, I know it. So, so that's the basic construction process. Like I said, don't get caught up in the numbers. A lot of this you can do yourself, and it's all in that manual. So now we're going to shift gears and the fun part. So this is where you kind of get to be an artist or a landscape architect, kind of paint your own picture. We want to utilize native plants. You can look at that top right photo, and you can see how much deeper those native plants' root systems are. Not only does this help for stormwater, uptake, it also really helps them survive during periods of drought. So we want to select our plants based on their ability to handle both standing water and drought. Think about the height of each plant, the bloom time and color, overall plant texture, and you want to mix varying heights and shapes. So the layout can be as simple or complicated as you like. I recommend planting species in groups of 3 to 7. That way you get a really good bold statement of their color. Spacing can be about every 1 to 2 feet. And aesthetics are important and inspiring. If you install a rain garden, it looks great the first year, a lot of people are gonna be complimenting you. However, if it's, year 2 to 3 to 4, you start letting it go and it just becomes overgrown and not well maintained, and then you'll start getting thistles moving in. It could change people's view on installing them on their own property. And also, you want to choose the right plant in the right place to do its job. Rain gardens have zones, so to speak, and we'll talk about those here in a minute. This is a simplistic layout. There's nothing wrong with it. It's pretty straight and to the point. This is a complicated layout. You could probably strive to be somewhere in the middle, but by all means, if you have the time or want to do it this way, you could really end up with something beautiful for your landscape. So the function of the plants in the rain garden is to absorb rainwater, handle periods of standing water and drought. This is a tough combination to kind of juggle. We want to choose the right plant for the right job. So if we look at zone 1, that's going to be the very bottom or center. And you want to put plants there that can tolerate wet conditions. As we move out, zone 2 is plants that can kind of tolerate occasional standing water, but they don't like to be there all the time. And then up to zone 3, this is plants that prefer drier conditions.
So John, I have a question about that.
Yes.
So my situation is I do have standing water.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like a rain garden will not work because when there's a heavy rain, I do have spots that just hold water. But are you saying, is there a possibility of getting plants rather than, I really don't want to use French drains? Is there another solution that you can recommend?
Yeah. How long does it take for this water to, go away after a significant rain event?
Like with today's rain, it will leave probably late tomorrow or at least by Saturday.
Okay. That's not really too bad considering how much rain we got today. Make sure you write down my contact information and I'll be able to help guide you a little bit. I need to look at a map of the area and the soil.
Okay.
And I'll be happy to help direct you.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
So what if you have an area, like I have an area in my front yard right now that has a fairly sizable puddle that's about 10 by 10, maybe not quite. And that water is going to be there through the weekend at least. Is that just a hopeless situation? Is that too wet? And just needs some backfill or something to raise the level of the ground?
I guess that would depend is that water coming off of your roof or your impervious
No,
area, or is it
no,
just,
not at all.
it's
And
a
then
go ahead.
it's a low spot in the yard, but it always collects water until about August, and then it's hard as a rock for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and that's pretty site specific. Write down my information. I'd be happy to help guide you, come out, make a site visit and address the situation. There's a lot of things that may be causing that pocket of standing water.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's
definitely not coming off the house
okay.
unless it's filtering, 30 feet across the yard into that puddle. But I don't think it is.
No, it sounds like that's just the lowest point of your yard.
Right, exactly.
Now, but what you could do is, you could do things to intercept that water before it gets there, because it is, if it's the lowest point, it is flowing that way. But then rain garden might not be a silver bullet for that problem. That could be something.
Yeah,
that,
right.
Look into a swale or drainage tile or something of that nature.
Okay.
Also consider the fact that, neighbors runoff can have a huge effect, especially their hardscapes and drainage. And, if yours is the low spot among, a neighborhood of higher spots,
Right.
Guess what you got?
Right. I don't think that's the problem, but I'll have to think about that.
There was one lady in town that had, like 2 or 3 foot of basement flooding, and it was all coming from neighbors out on, yeah.
Water just goes downhill. So if you're at the lowest point, unfortunately, that's oftentimes what happens. And it could be adjacent landowners not doing anything, you know.
Right.
So now that we've, have our spot picked out, we have, we have our design, but we want to pick these plants. I love looking at plants. Latin names don't bother me, but when I see these lists for rain gardens, they look like this, and I want to pull my hair out. What I would suggest is, if you guys have anybody that locally that you already purchased native plants from, call them, see what they generally have available. It'll help dwindle your list. But what I want to do is go through a couple of my favorites, or plants that I feel are pretty good for rain gardens, just to kind of give you guys a starting point. So I talked is the focal point of these rain gardens is the wildflowers. The aesthetic beauty is fantastic, as well as they're adapted to our local conditions. My absolute favorite is cardinal flower. This attracts both pollinators and hummingbirds.
I love that.
It prefers saturated soils and full sun, and grows about 2 to 4 feet in height.
How long does it stay in bloom?
A pretty significant time. I have them on my property quite a while, as far as natives go.
I've never seen these. These are gorgeous. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and watching a hummingbird feed on them, because there's a lot of insects that, based on this flower, it's a very irregular flower shape. So there's very interesting insects in it, as well as the hummingbirds that
So
feed and pollinate.
can you buy this in the gardeners?
There is cultivars available out there. You should be able to find this one pretty easily. We actually offered it last year at our wildflower sale, but we're not offering it this year.
Okay.
What zone?
See, this is that zone 1. This prefers that saturated soils. So this could be kind of the center of your rain garden.
But you're not saying the zone 1 plant can't exist if the water dries out.
I will tell you this: if I tell you a plant can't grow somewhere, the next day I'll walk and find that plant growing there.
I mean, it will tolerate some dryness, just not the whole summer of it.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely.
Or water it.
Yeah. Right.
That's cool.
Get the
isn't it?
sprinkler out.
Isn't that pretty?
And during the a lot of folks, they like to always say how native plants are zero maintenance. I don't agree with that. We still need to give them a little bit of care during that first year of establishment.
Okay.
So keep that in mind.
Teacher.
One of the most efficient plants at trapping pollutants is blue flag iris. So this is full sun to partial shade and moist soils, 1 to 3 feet in height. Beautiful plant. And this is, think maybe that edge of zone 1 going into zone 2, or zone 2 going into 3.
1-2.
A great plant for garden borders is Joe Pieweed. I like this because of its it attracts a variety of pollinators, and it's also deer and rabbit resistant, which could be a problem in a lot of neighborhoods. And there, yeah, and there's many cultivars available anywhere from 2 to 7 feet. If we talk about texture or adding different types of plants, grasses, ferns, and sedges, they are fantastic for rain gardens. A great one for the edge, that zone 3, or even, near or on your berm, could be little blue stem. This prefers dry to medium moisture, tolerates a variety of soil conditions, and can be anywhere 2 to 4 feet tall. If we start thinking zone 1 again, sensitive fern. This is a favorite for that wettest zone, part shade to full sun, and 3 to 4 feet, I'd say, in spread, not necessarily height. So as you can imagine, if we're mixing in that cardinal flower and that blue flag iris with some sensitive fern and little blue stem. I mean, we already kind of have this really beautiful garden going. Some landowners, they prefer to put shrubs and trees in their rain garden. It's not as often, but it certainly does work. Buttonbush would be a fantastic one. This attracts hummingbirds, butterflies, 5 to 12 feet tall. You can trim it, keep it trimmed back. It grows in wet soils and it really likes to have its feet wet. So this is a zone 1 plant. Winterberry holly, fantastic for pollinators, birds, winter color. Yeah, it's a border plant, 3 to 12 feet tall, and a variety of soil conditions. That's terrific, because that gives you a little bit of winter beauty for your rain garden. Because let's be honest, wildflowers or pollinator plots just look downright sad in the wintertime. So here's an example of a landowner that chooses, to incorporate trees into their rain garden. Okay. So I'm going to buzz through some frequently asked questions real quick. Does a rain garden form a pond? No. If you design it properly, it will allow the water to soak into the ground so it's dry in between rainfalls, or about 24 to 48 hours. If it's properly designed, mosquitoes should not be able to grow there. They need 7 to 12 days to lay and hatch their eggs. So water should not be standing. We are not building a small wetland or a pond. After these gardens are established, they can be maintained with minimal effort after the plants are good and established. Weeding and watering are basic maintenance. We know that nothing is maintenance free, and it doesn't have to be expensive. Call on those people that you help move, neighbors. And so the material cost is probably about $600. You should be able to do about a 300 square foot rain garden.
Nice, very nice.
I'm not sure if she was able to make it on today, but Jennifer Reeves, she's the stormwater coordinator for the city of Oberlin. And I believe they're starting a rain barrel rebate program. I do not know.
Don, I don't mean to interrupt, but I thought I had signed up for the rain barrel Zoom, and I didn't know it was rain garden. It's very informative, but I'm like, wait a minute, where is the rain barrel? So, yeah, that's why I'm very excited to see a rain barrel right now.
Well, I apologize. To be honest, it's and rain barrels, they have a great function. It's just hard to have an entire program designed after that. If a rain barrel workshop's in person, you're showing people how to construct them. Some folks will paint on them, but a Zoom format is kind of tough.
Okay, but really, it was very. I'm not complaining, but I didn't read very carefully. So.
Well, I'll be honest, that was the original request. So, but anyway, so Jennifer Reeves, she is the stormwater coordinator for Oberlin. She is very passionate, fantastic to work with. So I recommend writing down her information and contacting her. I don't know too much about the program. I think they're in the planning phase.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you guys have any additional questions for me?
Is there any connection between rain barrels and rain gardens, or are they totally separate issues?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, because rain barrels, once they're full, they've reached their capacity. So you could have, separators on them that once your rain barrel is full, it trickles down into the rain garden. Or, if your rain garden needs a watering, you can always use your rain barrel to do that. To me personally, I kind of think they're part of the same system.
So you could kind of regulate the water flow with the rain barrel.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Keep in mind that if you have a rain like today, off of 1,000 square foot roof, you probably need about 12 rain barrels to capture all of that water. It's about 625 gallons per inch of rain for 1,000 square foot roof. Just so you know.
Wow.
So
That's a lot of work.
yeah. So right, but so you might want to capture it all. You might not want to capture it all. How much do you need for watering or whatever you're going to do with it? So,
Jen.
but there's a lot of water off of a roof. And you'll fill that rain barrel up in no time.
Absolutely.
I have two questions.
Sure.
One is, we've had a rain garden for a long time, and it's sort of deteriorated over the years. Not a lot of intentional things grow in it anymore, but I'm wondering, does one need to rake out the leaves, which I did do yesterday, just the old winter and fall leaves, or are those supposed to stay for mulch?
I would treat it like you do any other bed as far as maintenance goes. You want to keep that kind of cleaned out. Because it's whatever mix. Did you put soil? Did you do any soil amendments or a specific mix for the rain garden?
The person that put it in for us did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be my recommendation, to just do maintenance, because depending on what type of mulch that's getting in there and the leaves, that actually might be maybe holding too much moisture or not enough.
Okay, yeah, that was one of my questions. The other was simply, should one replace the mulch now and then? I mean, just add additional mulch now and then.
Absolutely. I would, like I said, I would treat it like you would do any other kind of landscaping bed with, annual maintenance.
Okay.
And as well as, and if you're starting to see a decline in your plants, and not getting good, replacement, by all means, get some more wildflowers or whatever plants you have in there planted. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of restocking.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question, John.
Yes.
Is it better to start with seedlings when you start planting, or is it better to do plant more established, I guess, plants or shrubs when you're creating your first rain garden?
In general, the wildflower plugs, they come in those 2 to 3 inch pots. Those are fine to start with. If you do want, if you're incorporating shrubs or trees, that's kind of personal preference. Granted, if you have a larger tree, it's going to have a more hardy root system, so it's going to handle that transplant a little bit better. But if you're putting a seedling in there, and as long as you make sure you keep it watered that first year, you should be good.
John, I have a question. We have some kind of really wet spots in the yard, and I would like to put some trees in. Do you know which trees would be really good to plant in very wet conditions? What
River birch.
Yeah, river birch.
Willow.
Yeah, black willow is a good one. Button bush is another one that could be good. It kind of depends. And that's another thing. If you're having these wet pockets in your yard, I don't always recommend someone planting something for that wet pocket.
Okay.
It'll take a long time to have a desired result. And then, the plants that you're planting back there that really love to have their feet wet. I mean, if you think silver maple or black willow, I mean, do you have any drainage tile near there? Because if you do, that tree's going to find its way into that drainage tile, and that could cause other problems.
Our situation is more that the whole back of the yard, the house is built out in the farm country, so the back of the yard is lower and doesn't drain out too well. So what basically happens is that the entire area is kind of saturated. So you walk across it, it goes mush, mush, mush.
Yeah, I have that too. In addition to the puddle in the front.
Yeah, and that you could strategically plant certain species, like we mentioned, that really like your feet wet. If you have that much soil saturation or that high of a water table throughout the year, they're going to really like to be have their feet wet.
Okay, because yeah, it's a nice place, I'd like the trees a little farther back where you can watch them and enjoy them,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. And sometimes we just have to understand that certain areas are just going to be wet.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's another thing. But if you want any sort of help, want me to come out there and meet or talk with you guys and see if we can come up with a plan, I'm happy to do that.
Oh, that would be great.
Unless you want me to tell your neighbor to do something, then I can't.
That would be even better, no.
No.
That's right. Sorry, not listening like I thought it was rain barrel, not rain garden. Thank you, this was great.
Yeah, and if you want, you can reach out to me. We do have some educational information on rain
All
barrel.
right, so John, you would come out actually and give us, if we discussed with you the problem, you might give us some hints what to do to help.
Absolutely, yeah. I can take a look at your property and see if a planting's better, or sometimes you may want to put in a swale.
What is the cost of your service?
Free.
Oh, it is. Oh, that's nice.
Saying, oh, that was nice.
John, is
How
there a
much are your
particular-
taxes?
John, is there a particular time that's best to reach you?
No, generally between 8 and 4:30 is my work hours.
Okay.
So if you, I'm pretty flexible on working with folks on getting out there. But I will say is time goes on, the wetter it gets, and as summer goes, I start to get really busy. So just go ahead and contact me, and I'll try to get to you guys as soon as I can.
Okay.
Okay, this was great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got rain barrel information also, so I'm happy.
All righty, folks. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
you. It was very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah, for organizing.
Yeah,
Okay,
You're
thank you.
welcome.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Sarah,
Yeah, hi, Joyce.
hi. Is that book available in digital form?
I can see. Let me check my email right now. 'Cause I think John just sent it to me.
Because
I
I'm
think it
wondering
is.
how we can get
I'm pretty
copies.
sure it is, but it's also readily available. If you go to anything where they might have a presence, doing tabling, that's usually one of the things that they have out there.
I missed the title of it. What was it?
Oh, I think it's just rain garden.
For
It's
your yard.
something about rain garden.
Okay,
Do your own rain garden or something like that. I don't know. But
right,
it's
right.
it's all over, it's a very common one. And
But what sort of places, John, Glenn,
oh,
would you
well,
find?
I get
Like
to
at
farmers
Don
market.
Mold's or something?
I get to farmers markets in Cleveland,
Oh.
and they're out there, 3-4 times a year. And whenever they are, I pick up a pamphlet or two, and I probably have 3 or 4 of those things lying around somewhere. I'm sorry.
I think we picked that one up at the fair.
So
Yeah,
it
and
is
that's a fair
available-
too, county fair.
Oh, yeah.
Joyce,
But that's
it is
the end of
available
the
at
summer.
Yeah. Also, John did not mention this, but I know that the Lorain Soil and Water Conservation is having their annual plant sale. I filled out the form a couple weeks ago and bought maybe too many plants, but you just like print out the document and then send in your money or your cash, and then you pick up the plants. I believe it's at, where do you pick it up?
April 16th at Grove Fruit Farm.
Groves, yeah. But they've got some really, really good plants. Some native, and then some that John mentioned for good ones for the rain garden. So I would definitely recommend checking out the plant sale there. And they're really, really cheap compared to some of the other
And
ones.
you said they didn't have the butterfly one.
They do
That
not
was
have the
really
cardinal. Yeah.
The cardinal
yeah.
one. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah, I might check out some other places where you can get that too, because that one sounds like a really good spot. But if I find anything, I'll let you know where we can get that one, Joyce.
Okay, how can I find the digital link to that book?
I'll send it to you. I'm gonna
Oh, okay.
have all your guys' emails, and then I'll send it out.
Oh,
Thank
okay, lovely. Thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate you.
Sure. Yeah.
I had no idea what a rain garden was.
Yeah. I also was so like I was under the impression that you could fill like my parents' backyard is very, very swampy. Kind of like what people were saying, it goes like mush mush
That's
whenever
fine.
you stomp on it. And I really had the impression that you could just plant plants and then make a rain garden that way. And had no idea about how much planting goes more into it with the slope that John was talking about. And I also
Right.
in the garden, there's so many spaces that's underneath where the water just comes right off the roof. And I was hoping to do like a mini
Mine
rain
too.
garden there. But what John was saying, like you can't build it 10, I think he said don't do it 10 feet from the house
10
or
feet.
from the roof. So
Right.
I learned so much. I didn't know that so much went into it and that you can't just plant, you know, plants at like the wet feet in the ground where it's soppy. So had to figure out another solution for
Yeah,
that.
for my whole backyard.
I know, yeah. What he was saying,
Well,
he was like, you just have to accept that some spots are just gonna be wet. And I don't want to accept that.
Right.
Well, I have
But that
accepted it.
example he gave made it
Yeah.
really worthwhile. That
Yeah,
example we saw was beautiful.
yeah. I also learned the pet waste thing. I had no idea that that was so bad that, you know, if you don't, because you think of it as just natural almost. And I don't know,
Right.
I just didn't know that it was so bad for you to not pick up your dog poop. Yeah.
Oh, it's a polite thing to do too.
Definitely the polite thing. And I do, but I just didn't know that it was so bad for, you know, for the storm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I gotta go. Thanks very much for organizing this. Are you
well,
gonna have
thank
another
you very
one?
much.
Yeah. So on April 22nd, actually Earth Day, we have the Western Reserve Herb Society. They have a botanical, or they're part of the botanical gardens in Cleveland. And Beth, she's like going to be the presenter, and she's going to be talking about how to grow herbs in containers and just smaller backyard herb growing. So that is
Oh, great.
up, the registration page is up and running. So if you go where you registered for this one, you can register for that one too. So,
Okay, great.
yep.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks so
night,
much for joining
everybody.
us. Good night.
Yep. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
All right.